What are your plans to actually this year reduce the emissions of LA by 7.5% in line with those guidelines of the IPCC and the UN?
Absolutely. Great to be with you, Saad. So that's an average for all cities around the world. And we're actually ahead of that and continuing to be ahead. We're about 24% down from our baseline of 1990 and on track to be 50% down by 2025 in less than 4 years. So there's so many things to describe of how we're getting there. But the boldest of them was partnering with our National Renewable Energy Lab and a supercomputer and doing the first study in US history and one of the first in the world that other cities are calling us about to run all the permutations of how we can get to 100% renewable energy. We own our own electricity company, which is rare for some cities globally, but that means we also control our own destiny. So when I mentioned that 13%, it was actually 11. That wasn't about this year. That was a few years ago when we closed down a coal plant. That's a permanent baseline reduction. We're continuing to do that. In fact, we had a day recently which 93% of our electricity came from renewable sources. Now, we're about 40% right now. We'll get to, as I mentioned, by the end of the decade, 97% carbon-free electricity generation, or the neutrality of carbon, but it will not be by buying credits. It will not be by assuming that there's some carbon sink. It'll be by changing the electricity that we have. So, we hope to inspire other places to do the same. It's tougher for cities when they don't control their own electric companies, but that's where activism comes in, where we push the private electric companies to do the same thing. We're the #1 solar city in America, and we're going to be continuing to do that, not just in huge solar arrays in the desert, but also on rooftops, especially in communities of color, where solar power was seen as something that was whiter and richer in the nicer parts of town. It's everything from putting shade trees in the communities that are hottest and usually poorest, and that have the most people of color living in them as well, and making sure that we have all hands on. And then finally, really, it's around transportation. For us in Los Angeles, it's not only zero emission vehicles, but it's 15 new rail lines and rapid transit lines, and something I've been pushing for, making transit free, which I hope by September we will do, at least with students and community college students as the first ones, and maybe 6 months later for all of our low-income residents to ride transit for free in the city of Los Angeles, and finally give people a way to not pollute when they get around.